First Contact and Chaos. The day humanity became a controlled threat to the galaxy started with a cup of spilled coffee and Lieutenant Natasha Singh's remarkable talent for turning disasters into diplomatic breakthroughs. The massive crystalline ship of the Zephyr Collective had been hovering above New Delhi for 6 hours, their attempts at communication consisting of complex mathematical equations that Earth's best minds were still trying to decipher. Lieutenant Singh wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the First Contact site. As a logistics officer for the United Earth Defense Force, her job was coordinating supply chains, not dealing with potentially world-changing alien encounters. But when your coffee maker breaks and the only working one is in the diplomatic center's break room, even the threat of court-martial starts to seem reasonable. She was halfway through pouring her coffee when the building shook, causing her to spill the scalding liquid all over her uniform. Her subsequent string of colorful multilingual curses caught the attention of the Zephyr delegates who had just entered the room, their crystalline forms shifting through rainbow hues in what she would later learn was intense curiosity. "Oh, sorry about that," she muttered, dabbing at her shirt with paper towels. "Just having one of those days, you know? When the universe decides you don't get to have coffee and everything goes sideways." The Zephyr delegates' colors shifted rapidly, their crystalline forms vibrating in a way that made the room's fluorescent lights dance. To everyone's surprise, they began communicating, not in mathematics, but in patterns of light that matched Singh's emotional state. As it turned out, the Zephyr Collective didn't primarily communicate through mathematics at all. The equations they'd been broadcasting were merely their attempt to appear properly sophisticated for First Contact. In reality, they were a species that communicated primarily through emotional resonance and shared experiences, and Lieutenant Singh's very human moment of frustration had given them their first real connection with Earth culture. Within hours, Singh found herself promoted to Acting Chief of Human Zephyr Relations, a position that didn't exist until she accidentally created it. The official First Contact declaration was signed over coffee and pastries, with the Zephyr delegates enthusiastically sharing their own stories of daily mishaps through spectacular light shows. But it was what happened next that truly set the tone for humanity's reputation in galactic society. The Zephyr, it seemed, were part of a larger galactic community, one with very specific protocols about how civilizations should conduct themselves. These protocols, contained in the Galactic Standard of Civilization Advancement, were thousands of pages long and had been refined over millions of years. Singh took one look at the document and said, "Yeah, we're going to need a highlight reel version of this. Maybe with some memes?" The Galactic Council was horrified. The Zephyr were delighted. And humanity's reputation as a species that could simultaneously respect and completely reconstruct ancient traditions was born. When Singh presented Earth's simplified version of the Galactic Standards, complete with flowcharts, emoji, and a section titled TLDR, "Don't be a jerk," half the council wanted to immediately quarantine Earth as a dangerous influence. The other half were already implementing her formatting suggestions in their own documents. "You have to understand," explained the Zephyr representative to the council, their form shimmering with amusement, "humans don't disrespect tradition, they optimize it. They don't break rules, they upgrade them." "That's worse," declared Representative Oryx of the Primordial Societies, their tentacles waving in distress. "They're not just chaos incarnate, they're chaos with a filing system." The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for the Arcturian crisis. When a quantum anomaly threatened to destabilize the Arcturian trading routes, the Council spent 3 days discussing proper procedural responses. Singh, who was only present because she'd been teaching the Zephyr about Earth coffee, suggested they just turn it off and on again. To everyone's surprise, especially Singh's, it worked. The quantum anomaly reset itself, the trading route stabilized, and humanity's reputation as brilliant problem solvers who had no business being brilliant problem solvers was cemented. The Council's final classification of humanity as a controlled threat was really more of a compromise. As one council member put it, they're either going to revolutionize the galaxy or accidentally break it while trying to make it more user-friendly. Either way, we should probably keep an eye on them. Lieutenant Singh, for her part, just asked if she could finally finish her coffee. The Noodle Incident. Dr. Marcus Weber never intended to revolutionize galactic agriculture. As a food scientist specializing in instant noodles, he was more concerned with perfecting the optimal broth-to-noodle ratio than solving interstellar crises. But when the great nutrient collapse threatened billions of lives across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, it was his peculiar expertise that provided an unexpected solution. The crisis began when the photosynthetic concordat, responsible for producing 60% of the galaxy's food supply, discovered their primary crop worlds were failing. The proto-organic plants they'd carefully cultivated for millennia were becoming resistant to traditional growth methods. The Galactic Council's best scientists predicted widespread famine within months. Weber was only at the emergency summit because he'd won a contest. His instant noodle brand, Quantum Comfort, had become surprisingly popular among the Zephyr, who enjoyed how the noodle's spiral pattern matched their crystalline architecture. As a gesture of cultural exchange, he'd been invited to demonstrate Earth cooking techniques at the Council's annual diplomatic banquet. "So let me get this straight," Weber said, slurping noodles while reviewing the crisis data, "you've been growing the same crops, the same way, for thousands of years? Without any variation?" The Concordat's representatives, tall beings that looked like walking ferns, rustled in affirmation. "Well, there's your problem," Weber continued, fishing out another noodle. "You've got a monoculture situation. These plants aren't failing, they're bored." The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The concept of bored plants was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. But Weber was already pulling out his tablet, showing charts from Earth's agricultural history. "Look, on Earth, we learned this lesson the hard way. Monocultures are efficient but vulnerable. You need variety, hybridization, even a little chaos. My noodles aren't just one wheat strain, they're a blend of different varieties, each adding their own characteristics. It's like jazz, but for agriculture." The Concordat scientists were skeptical, but desperate times called for desperate measures. When Weber suggested introducing Earth crop varieties as hybridization candidates, they agreed to a small-scale test. What followed was either the most ambitious agricultural experiment in galactic history or the most elaborate cooking show ever attempted. Weber approached the problem like developing a new instant noodle recipe. He mixed and matched Earth crops with alien varieties, creating hybrids that combined the best characteristics of both. Rice that could photosynthesize in ultraviolet light. Wheat that grew in zero gravity. Tomatoes that communicated with their neighbors through quantum entanglement. The secret, he explained to an increasingly fascinated audience, is treating agriculture like cooking. You don't just follow the recipe, you improvise, experiment, find out what works. The results were beyond anyone's expectations. The hybrid crops didn't just survive, they thrived. They adapted to conditions that had killed their predecessors, developed new traits that enhanced their nutritional value, and even began exhibiting characteristics that defied conventional biology. The Concordat's representatives were particularly excited about a variant of corn that had somehow developed the ability to tell jokes through pheromone signals. "But how did you know this would work?" they asked Weber. He shrugged, already testing different seasonings for the new vegetables. "I didn't. But that's the thing about Earth cooking, sometimes the best discoveries happen when you're not afraid to experiment. Like how I discovered my best-selling noodle flavor by accidentally dropping my phone in the broth maker." The council was both impressed and terrified. Humanity had taken one of the galaxy's most serious crises and solved it by essentially treating interstellar agriculture like a cooking show. The Concordat's ancient and dignified approach to farming had been revolutionized by a man who named his latest hybrid crop space spaghetti. "This is exactly why humans are classified as a controlled threat," muttered one council member. "They don't just solve problems, they solve them in ways that make you question everything you thought you knew about problems. The noodle incident, as it came to be known, changed more than just galactic agriculture. It introduced the concept of culinary science as a legitimate field of xenobiological study. Soon, cooking shows became the galaxy's most popular form of educational entertainment, with beings of all species learning that sometimes the best solutions come with a side of creative chaos. Weber himself became something of a celebrity, though he remained focused on his true passion. His latest project? Teaching the joke-telling corn how to do stand-up comedy. After all, he reasoned, who says food can't be entertaining? Protocol breakers. Captain Gene Park of the Earth Defense Fleet had a reputation for solving problems in ways that gave the Galactic Military Command migraines. When faced with a seemingly impossible situation, most captains would consult the standard combat protocols. Park consulted cat videos, ancient video games, and once, memorably, a collection of street magic tricks. The situation that cemented humanity's reputation as tactical innovators began with what the Galactic Council termed a Class 7 hostile entity incursion. A swarm of self-replicating machines had emerged from deep space, consuming everything in their path and converting matter into more of themselves. The combined fleet of 17 advanced civilizations had failed to even slow them down. Park was only supposed to be observing the military response as Earth's liaison. Instead, she spent most of the strategy meeting doodling in her notebook and watching old recordings of her daughter's soccer games on her tablet. Captain Park, the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Fleet, finally said, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with frustration, "Do you have any input on our tactical approach?" Park looked up from her tablet. "Oh, sorry. I was just thinking about how this reminds me of my daughter's soccer team. You know, before they learned about passing the ball." The chamber fell silent. Several high-ranking officers began to emit stress pheromones. "You're comparing a civilization-ending threat to children's sports?" asked the Supreme Commander. "Well, yeah," Park said, pulling up the video. "See, everyone's trying to attack the swarm head-on, like these kids all chasing the ball at once. But what if we tried something different? What if we played keep away instead?" That was how the combined Galactic Fleet found itself implementing a tactical doctrine based on elementary school soccer strategies. Instead of engaging the swarm directly, ships would attract their attention and then pass it to another group, keeping the machines constantly moving but never letting them catch their target. "It's like a game," Park explained to increasingly bewildered alien commanders. "We're not trying to destroy them, we're trying to tire them out. Make them use up their resources chasing us." The strategy worked better than anyone expected. The swarm, programmed to pursue the most efficient path to resource acquisition, couldn't adapt to targets that kept moving in deliberately inefficient patterns. After 3 days of what Park called playing cosmic monkey in the middle, the machines had depleted their energy reserves and became dormant. But it was what Park did next that truly horrified the Galactic Command. Instead of destroying the dormant swarm, she suggested reprogramming them. "Think about it," she said, sketching out her idea on a napkin. "They're really good at converting matter and self-replicating, right? So instead of weapon platforms, what if we turned them into universal recycling systems?" "You want to take a weapon of mass destruction," the Supreme Commander clarified, "and turn it into a garbage collection service?" "Exactly. We already know they're good at breaking things down and rebuilding them. We just need to change their programming from consume everything to consume waste and convert it into useful materials. It's like teaching kids to clean up their toys, you just have to make it into a game." The Galactic Military Command watched in a mixture of horror and amazement as Park's team reprogrammed the swarm using principles borrowed from educational video games. The machines that had once threatened civilization now roamed the galaxy, converting space debris into useful materials, occasionally forming themselves into giant smiley faces when they completed a cleaning cycle. "This is unprecedented," declared one military analyst. "They didn't just neutralize the threat, they domesticated it." The incident led to several additions to the standard combat protocols, including the controversial Park Principle, which stated that sometimes the best military solution is to turn your enemy into a public utility. It also led to a complete revision of galactic military training, with a new emphasis on creative problem-solving and what Park called thinking like a kid who doesn't know the rules yet. When asked about her unconventional approach to military tactics, Park just shrugged. Look, most problems in the universe aren't about finding the biggest gun. Sometimes you just need to remember what it was like when everything was a game and any solution was possible as long as you could imagine it. The Galactic Military Command eventually created a special classification for human military officers, strategic chaos consultants. As one alien admiral put it, they don't break the rules of warfare, they simply refuse to acknowledge that such rules ever existed in the first place. Park's daughter's soccer team, meanwhile, went on to win their league championship using strategies adapted from Space Fleet maneuvers. No one was quite sure how to feel about that. The Great Recalibration. Engineer Priya Patel had a habit of fixing things that weren't technically broken. Her motto, "If it ain't broke, you're not looking hard enough," had gotten her into trouble more times than she could count. But when she accidentally discovered a flaw in the fundamental operating system of the galaxy, her compulsion to tinker became the catalyst for the greatest technological revolution since the invention of faster-than-light travel. It started with a simple question during a routine maintenance check of a Galactic Council communication hub. "Why does your quantum network buffer take 3 minutes to reboot?" she asked, already pulling out her diagnostic tools. The alien technicians exchanged worried looks. "It's supposed to take 3 minutes, one explained. "The great architects designed it that way 10,000 years ago." Priya was already deep in the system's code, muttering to herself. "Yeah, but why? That's like having a loading screen for your loading screen. It's just bad user experience." Before anyone could stop her, she had opened up the quantum terminal's maintenance panel and started rewiring it with spare parts from her toolkit. The alien technicians watched in horror as she bypassed safety protocols that had been in place since before humanity discovered fire. "You can't just modify ancient technology," one protested. "These systems are perfectly calibrated." "Perfect is a strong word for something that makes you wait 3 minutes to check your messages," Priya replied, not looking up from her work. "Besides, I'm not modifying it, I'm optimizing it. There's a difference." The difference, as it turned out, was spectacular. When Priya finished her optimization, the quantum network didn't just reboot faster, it began operating at efficiency levels that the original designers had thought theoretically impossible. "How?" demanded the head of the Galactic Technology Council, their cybernetic implants blinking in confusion. "These systems were designed by the most advanced civilization in galactic history." Priya shrugged, already eyeing the council chamber's apparently inefficient lighting system. "Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one. The great architects built everything to last forever, but they forgot about maintenance accessibility. It's like they never had to debug their own code." That was when she noticed something odd in the quantum network's base programming. Hidden beneath layers of complex protocols was a simple oversight, one that had been replicated across every piece of technology in the galaxy for millennia. "Oh," she said, in the tone of someone who had just found a typo in the universe. "They forgot to turn off autosave." The implications were staggering. Every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy had been running redundant backup processes that no one had noticed because they were too busy admiring how advanced everything was. It was like discovering that the entire universe had been running with its caps lock on. What followed was either the greatest technological upgrade in history or the most comprehensive debugging session ever attempted, depending on who you asked. Priya moved through the galaxy's infrastructure like a tornado of efficiency, optimizing everything from planetary defense systems to food replicators. "You can't just optimize technology that's worked perfectly for thousands of years," protested one council member. "Watch me," Priya replied, already redesigning their chair to be more ergonomic. The council member started to object, then realized they were suddenly much more comfortable. The results were transformative. Energy consumption across the galaxy dropped by 30%. Communication speeds increased exponentially. Even the fabric of spacetime seemed to run more smoothly, though several physicists insisted that shouldn't be possible. But it was Priya's approach to documentation that really scandalized the galactic community. Instead of writing formal technical manuals, she created what she called user guides for actual users. Look, she explained to a horrified panel of ancient AI custodians, if someone has to read 1,000 pages just to make their food replicator stop producing everything with a slight taste of metal, your user interface needs work. Her revised manuals included such controversial sections as, quick fixes for when things go weird, and, what to try before calling tech support. The Galactic Technology Council was appalled. Users were delighted. The final straw came when Priya discovered that the galaxy's automated maintenance systems had been running in safe mode for the past 5 million years. No wonder everything takes so long, she muttered, reaching for her toolkit. It's like running a quantum computer with training wheels. As she prepared to implement what she called a small quality-of-life update to the fundamental operating systems of the galaxy, the council finally classified her work under a new category: technological optimization through controlled chaos. Humans, one council member observed, don't just use technology. They argue with it until it works better out of sheer self-defense. Symphony of Stars. Ambassador Dmitry Volkov never expected his background as a former orchestra conductor would be relevant to galactic diplomacy. Yet when the biggest diplomatic crisis in 10,000 years threatened to tear the galactic community apart, it wasn't political savvy that saved the day, it was his understanding of harmony. The crisis began when the harmonious confluence, a species that communicated entirely through mathematical music, accused the Silicon Collective of deliberately broadcasting dissonant frequencies in their direction. The Silicon Collective, in turn, claimed their quantum computing processes naturally produced those frequencies, and the confluence was being culturally insensitive to their way of existence. 17 emergency council sessions had failed to resolve the dispute. Traditional mediators had given up. 3 different species had already chosen sides, and battle fleets were being mobilized. Volkov sat through all of this while doing something that puzzled his alien colleagues: he was listening. Not just to the arguments, but to the actual sounds both species were making. The problem, he announced during the 18th emergency session, isn't political at all. It's musical. You're all performing different pieces without a conductor. The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The harmonious confluence vibrated in frequencies indicating skepticism. The Silicon Collective's representatives displayed error messages across their surface displays. Think about it, Volkov continued, pulling out his old conductor's baton. The confluence exists in perfect harmony, every individual contributing to a greater symphony. The collective processes information in quantum waves that create their own kind of music. You're not fighting over territory or resources, you're having an argument about artistic interpretation. Before anyone could object, he had climbed onto the central platform and begun conducting. Using his baton, he directed the confluence to adjust their harmonic frequencies slightly, while simultaneously guiding the collective to modify their processing rhythms. Music isn't about perfect mathematical precision, he explained as he worked. It's about finding harmony between different elements. Sometimes the most beautiful compositions come from combining sounds that shouldn't work together. Slowly, remarkably, the dissonance began to resolve itself. The confluence's crystalline songs began weaving through the collective's quantum frequencies, creating something entirely new, a harmony that encompassed both species' natural rhythms. You see? Volkov said, his baton still moving. You're not in conflict, you're in counterpoint. The tension between your different styles isn't a flaw, it's an opportunity for something greater. The effect was transformative. What had started as a diplomatic crisis evolved into the galaxy's first cross-species symphony. Other civilizations began adding their own voices to the composition, the plasma storms of the energy beings providing percussion, the gravitational pulses of the singularity minds adding bass notes. Volkov spent the next 3 months teaching basic conducting techniques to a hastily assembled team of interstellar diplomats. Diplomacy is like conducting, he explained. It's not about making everyone play the same notes, it's about helping them play different notes together. The Galactic Council, watching their carefully constructed diplomatic protocols being replaced by musical theory, didn't know whether to be impressed or terrified. They settled for creating a new diplomatic classification, harmonic resolution specialist. But this isn't how interstellar diplomacy is supposed to work, protested one traditional mediator. Maybe not, Volkov replied, already sketching out notes for what he called a galactic symphony of understanding, but tell me, when was the last time you saw representatives from 17 different species voluntarily participate in anything together? The crisis not only ended peacefully but sparked a renaissance in interstellar arts. The Harmonious Confluence and Silicon Collective collaborated on a new form of quantum music that quickly became the galaxy's most popular entertainment. Other species began exploring how their natural forms of expression could contribute to this new artistic movement. Volkov himself became something of a celebrity, though he insisted he was just applying basic principles of music theory to galactic politics. In an orchestra, he would explain, every instrument has its own voice, its own part to play. The conductor's job isn't to make them all sound the same, it's to help them understand how their different voices can create something beautiful together. The Galactic Council eventually added a mandatory music appreciation course to their diplomatic training program. As one senior member put it, if we're going to have humans turning every crisis into an opportunity for creative expression, we might as well learn to enjoy the symphony. And so humanity's reputation as agents of controlled chaos gained yet another dimension. Not only did they solve problems in unexpected ways, they turned those solutions into art. In the end, perhaps that was the most human thing about them, the ability to find beauty in the chaos of the cosmos, and help others hear it too.